Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Loving obeisances unto the Supreme Being Vasudeva, who is everything there is. Janmadyasya yato anvayaditarataschartheshu abhigyaswarat tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yat surayah tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha dhamna swena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. We meditate upon the transcendent absolute being from whom springs forth this universe. He is present in all that exists and yet distinct from everything. He is fully conscious and totally independent. He revealed to the first seer Brahma the import of Vedic wisdom. The material creation, made of threefold gunas, appears in him as though real, like water in a mirage. Being eternally self effulgent, he is ever free of the illusion Maya of the material world. We meditate upon him, the Supreme Being. Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amritadrava sanyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. O devotees who relish a taste for divine love, Bhagavatam is the fully ripened fruit of the wish-yielding tree of Vedas, flowing as immortal nectar from Shuka Brahma Rishi. Go on drinking the sweet nectar day after day. So now we are entering the second chapter of the fifth skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam. We saw the story of the great king Priyavrata, who is the son of Swayambhuva Manu and who did great austerities and who ruled the kingdom with great splendor, who did remarkable feats, and then finally he gave his kingdom to his son Agnidhra, and he left to engage in solitary retreat and thereby abide in total devotion to Sri Hari. Now we continue with the son Agnidhra. So, having been given the kingdom after his father has left to engage in complete devotion, Agnidhra duly followed the commands of the father and took over Jambudwipa. As we saw, the father Priyavrata first created the nation states in its first form by going around the earth and thereby finding the seven continents and installing each one of his sons as the head of each of them. Jambudwipa, being the biggest continent, the Eurasian landmass, was given to his first son Agnidhra. So this Agnidhra was ruling Jambudwipa very righteously. And then, in order to have a son, he engaged in some austerities. So one of the things we again and again see in Bhagavatam is to have progeny, the kings or even the regular folks, engage in devotion so that the right consciousness is there before the children are born, so that they are also brought forth into the world in the right energy. So he engages in tapas, in austerity, in a beautiful mountain valley, and he prays primarily to Brahma, Brahma being their uh, great grandfather now, because Brahma is the father of Manu, and Manu is his grandfather. So, praying to Brahma, he engages in tapas, and Brahma, being pleased, sends him a beautiful woman, an Apsara. Apsaras are a class of heavenly women who are very beautiful and youthful. So, knowing the desire of his descendant, Agnidhra, Brahma sends a beautiful Apsara. Her name is Purvachiti, and Purvachiti descends in that garden by the mountain lakes where there are the tapas being done by Agnidhra. It's a beautiful place filled with natural beauty of lakes and ponds and lotus beds and beautiful flowers and birds and so on. And in this place, she goes around walking near where he is in a small hermitage doing his austerity. And she is walking very gracefully, and she is beauty personified in every way, being a heavenly damsel, and therefore she walks very gently and gracefully, and she makes jingling sounds with her feet because of the anklets she's wearing, and so that makes this Agnidhra open his eyes from his meditation, and he sees her, and he sees this beautiful woman, extremely ravishingly beautiful beyond words, and he sees that she is perfectly beautiful in every way, her gait, her glances, her voice, her limbs, everything. She is singing very gently, and there is beautiful bees going around her because of the flowers in her hair, and she has got a beautiful fragrance. So in every way his senses are completely captivated. So he opens his mouth and talks to her in a very poetic way because he is completely captivated by this woman. So he says, "Who are you and where have you come here?" And then he compares every feature very poetically. These are just nice poetic verses. How he says, "Your eyebrows are like bows without any strings, and then the glances coming out of your eyes are like arrows shooting very sharply." And then he also beautifully, in a different way, compares her whole face to a beautiful lake. And then in that lake he says two fish are swimming in the form of two eyes, and then her teeth when she smiles are like a bunch of white swan floating in the lake. These are all just poetic descriptions. The poetry in Sanskrit is very beautiful here. But essentially, all this is that Agnidhra describes the beauty of this woman to her in a very poetic way, and thereby he is able to express his desire for her in a very noble way. He says that everything about you is so gentle and beautiful. He says very poetically again, he says, just as the rishis wait to receive the Vedic mantras, similarly the bees are waiting for the flowers to fall from your locks of hair. And he says, just as Vedas are being sung beautifully, similarly, your these bees are also making sounds, just going around you like the sounds of Vedas. And then he says, your beautiful dress is like a flower. She wears a yellow dress, or he says it's like a yellow kadamba flower. And your your features are so pleasing, and you are playing with a beautiful ball in your hand, and your limbs are very perfect. So he just goes on very beautifully in a very poetic way describing all her beautiful features. And then he says, therefore, O pretty lady, I cannot let go of you. My mind or my eyes can never move away from you because you are so pretty, and I am certain that it is Brahma himself who has sent me your beauty because I prayed to him for the right woman to have children with, and I see you here, and therefore I consider this as prayers answered by Brahma, and therefore I want you to come along with me so that I can serve you and we can be together. So, by expressing such poetic language, he was able to impress this woman, and she, of course, was sent by Brahma in order to answer the prayers of Agnidhra. Therefore, she was also captivated by the intelligence and the noble speech and the youth and the splendor of this young hero Agnidhra, and therefore they got married and they ruled Jambudwipa together, and they have 9 sons, it is said, starting with the first son Nabhi. Nabhi is a famous son who becomes the king, and there are totally 9 sons they have. After having 9 sons, she eventually leaves earth once her job is done, and then Agnidhra, also seeing that his sons are now well built and strong and have grown into young men who are capable of taking over the kingdom, he divides the kingdom of Jambudwipa among his sons, headed by Nabhi, and he also follows her to go to the heavenly realm. So, here, one important thing to notice is, unlike Priyavrata, his father, who got detached from his beautiful wife and thereby left her and spent his time retiring from kingly duties in total devotion, and therefore he attained the eternal realm. Whereas this Agnidhra, he was still captivated by the beauty of this heavenly damsel, Purvachitti, and therefore he left the royal kingdom to go to heaven with her. And so, heaven, as it has come many times in Bhagavatam before, is only a place of pleasure and also temporary and not eternal. Heaven and hell are both temporary, where humans go through whatever they have to either enjoy or suffer based on their prior activities, and then they again take birth. And we can even see that heaven and hell are symbolic of different states of being on this very planet itself, or it can also be other realms. Whichever way we look at it, these are only temporary realms in time and space, and that's where Agnidhra goes because of his attachment to this woman, a beautiful Apsara. Meanwhile, the nine sons he has, they get married. The eldest son Nabhi, he marries a woman called Meru Devi, who is the daughter of Meru, and thereby they rule the Jambudwipa, the kingdom after Agnidhra. So now we enter the third chapter of fifth skandha. So now Nabhi is ruling this kingdom, and Nabhi in turn also now wants to have the right son. So every king wants to ensure that there is right progeny to take over after him. Nabhi, on the other hand, unlike his father Agnidhra, who worshipped Brahma and got a beautiful woman and so on, Nabhi worships the Supreme Lord himself. He organizes a great yajna, a fire sacrifice, with the right priests and sages assembled, and he, through all of them, performs a great sacrifice in order for the Supreme Being. And when he does this great yajna, the Supreme Lord, Yajna Purusha, he is called. Yajna Purusha means the deity who is the head of all sacrifices, which is the Supreme Being, Narayana. So he is normally very difficult by any activities because he is the transcendent original source of everything who takes form as he pleases, and therefore no matter what great materials one use, what right time one engages for worship or sacrifice, what beautiful place he arranges, what prayers one chants, what great priests and sages one assembles, what fees are paid, none of this necessarily are enough to ensure that he is pleased, because he is pleased out of his own causeless mercy, and therefore it is not that all of these are enough and one can engage in any kind of transaction with the Supreme Being. One can do whatever one does with sincerity, but grace comes out of causeless mercy. And so in this case, Nabhi was blessed with such causeless mercy. Even though he engaged in a beautiful sacrifice with everything right, that was not the reason. Bhagavatam says, again to emphasize that the Lord comes out of his own causeless mercy and not out of the effect of any cause within time. And so the Supreme Being manifests in that sacrifice, and when he manifests out of his own will, out of his own causeless mercy, of course, everybody is extremely pleased. All the priests there, all the assembled sages there, and all the people there, and the king himself, who is the head of the sacrifice, they are all pleased by the very darshan, the very appearance of the Supreme Being, who is the most pleasing to the eyes. And so the Lord's form is again described. Every time we have seen many places where the Supreme Being appears taking a particular form, and that form is with 4 arms and wearing yellow silk and wearing the Srivatsa mark on his chest, symbolizing Lakshmi, and he has his conch, lotus, mace, and lotus flower, and the chakra, the Sudarshana wheel, wearing a garland of forest flowers, and wearing a crown, earrings, and radiant jewels, and being all effulgent. All the priests and all the various sages, they all get up and they all bend their heads low and they offer him their obeisances. Here there is a very beautiful word. This again shows the glory of Sanskrit. The way the Lord's form is described in one word, one complex word. This comes only in Sanskrit, where the word is compound word that is so long. So this one word, let's read this. Sputa Kirana Pravara Mukuta Kundala Kataka Kati Sutra Hara Keyura Nupura Adya Anga Bhushana Vibhushitam. This is one word, very long word, which basically says in a very poetic way that he wears a beautiful crown, he's got beautiful anklets, he's got beautiful bracelets, he's got beautiful earrings, all the rest, that is all described in a very poetic way of the transcendent divine form of the Lord. And therefore the priests who are called the Ritviks, all the Ritviks, they get up and now they offer their prayers to the Supreme Lord. They tell him, O most adorable Supreme Being, we offer our homage to you. We don't know how to even glorify you, so simply we say Namaha because that's what we have been taught. The word Namaha, in fact, though it's complete, because Namaha means not me, only you. So even when we say Namaste, we say not me, only you. And so therefore, when we offer our obeisances by saying Namaha or Namaste, we deny the false ego and we only assert the presence of the Supreme Being within and without. So that's why the Ritviks say Namaha is the only way in which we know how to glorify you, because as a matter of fact, anyone who is caught in this phenomenal world of senses and all the various elements is powerless to even determine your nature, to determine your character. All he knows is the names and the forms and the colors of this material universe, and they are incapable of even beginning to comprehend your form because you are beyond both Prakriti and Purusha. So we see how Prakriti is the energy of the Supreme Being and Purusha is the cosmic form from which this energy comes forth. And the cosmic form, the Virat Rupa, which is called Purusha, and Prakriti, which is the energy of the Purusha, are both coming out of the Supreme Being who is pure consciousness and therefore is beyond both Prakriti and Purusha. And therefore they say the utmost that one can do is simply glorify your virtues to the extent they can, which can help in driving away the sins. But they are incapable, those who are caught in the phenomenal world, those who are only aware of the various aspects of material world, they are incapable of even beginning to comprehend you. On the other hand, they say that one who is totally surrendered unto you and one who is truly your devotee, who is not caught in this material world, he can glorify you even with very simple things such as a holy basil plant or some leaves and some water. So this is what Krishna says in the Gita too. He says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, with a leaf, with a flower, with a fruit, with water, one can offer me worship. That's all is necessary if one is going with a very humble heart, not great paraphernalia and expensive materials. All the expensive materials with which one can worship the Supreme Being are not enough if one doesn't have a pure heart. And if one has a pure heart, then even something very simple like a leaf of basil plant and water is enough. That's what he also says here. The Ritviks say here that that's all is enough to worship you. Then they say that we cannot perceive any gain worth the name to you because you do not have anything to gain from appearing in this sacrifice. So they say that you are the source of all the four objects of human pursuit. That is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. That is dharma being religious merits, righteousness, artha being wealth, kama being the right kind of sensual enjoyment, and moksha being liberation. All four come forth from you, and therefore you are the source of everything. Therefore, you have nothing to gain in any activity, you have nothing to gain in appearing in this sacrifice, and yet you come out of your own causeless mercy. And we are here seeking your blessing in order to get your boon. and out of abundant compassion for us, you are coming here even though we are ignorant. So, what they are saying is they are acknowledging that this sacrifice that they are organizing in order to have a son for the great King Nabhi is so petty compared to what the Supreme Being can offer, because he is the source of everything. And therefore, they say that you being the source of everything, and we have a petty boon to ask for, and yet you have appeared out of your own causeless mercy, your own abundant compassion, because you are greater than the greatest. You have appeared here on your own accord, and you revealed your glory, and you can even give us the final beatitude. But we are here asking a petty boon. You are as compassionate as these sages are, who come and on their own accord to ignorant people and give them the highest knowledge. So, this is the quality of the compassionate sages that they glorify through this praise, that just as sages, they go around giving the knowledge, the wisdom of the Supreme Being free, liberally, without any uh, prerequisites, without any qualification of the listener. They just give it freely to the most ignorant too, if they are receptive and if they are fortunate to be in that place. Similarly, the priests say that you have also appeared here out of your own causeless mercy to bestow us with your vision, and you can bestow us everything, even though we propitiated you only with the petty boon of having a son for our king. And so, therefore, he says, you have manifested yourself in the sacrificial performance, and that itself is the greatest benediction. We ought not to ask you anything, they say, because your virtues are just your name and your virtues are glorified by all the great sages. They say that all the sages who have already burned all their vasana, so those sages who are completely free of the ego, totally abiding in the pure self, who are having no sense of I and mine, even they spend their time glorifying you, because that is the best way for them to also engage their time. So they utter your praises, and such a being, such supreme being that you are, you appearing here itself is the greatest benediction. Therefore, they first ask a very nice prayer. They say, what we want to now ask is, whatever one does, whether we are stumbling or sneezing or falling down or yawning, and even when we are about to die, even when we have no power to remember you, we just pray that your name is on our tongue. So, this is a very nice prayer. They say, Sakala Kashmala Nirasanani Tava Gunakrita Namadheyani Vachana Gocharani Bhavantu. They say, your name and the name that describes your virtues. So, every name of Bhagavan describes his virtues. So, if we take any name, like we take a name like Mukunda, it means one who gives liberation. If we take a name such as Achyuta, the one who is ever fixed. Therefore, every name of the Supreme Being not only glorifies his virtues but also inspires devotion. So, therefore, they say, let your name be on our tongue no matter what situation we are in. And then finally, they do ask for the boon. They say, we have done this whole sacrifice because this royal sagely King Nabhi is desirous of obtaining a progeny, and you are alone competent to grant all desired boons. So, our goal, our desire is to have a son exactly like you. So, they ask for the highest boon even in this regard. They say that the King Nabhi, having done this great sacrifice and having been blessed with your appearance here, what we want for is to have a son exactly like you. Therefore, they say that since everyone is bewildered by your Maya, we are also bewildered in having a desire. But please ignore this part of us. Please do not mind any disrespect shown by asking for a boon, and please accept our simple request, and be pleased to bless us, because we are asking for something as stupid as a progeny, having got your divine darshan. But please be pleased to bless us with this and have a son exactly like you. So when the Supreme Being was praised like this by the priests there, and Nabhi was standing there, his wife was there, and they were all offering their obeisances, the Supreme Being graciously spoke a few words. He said, "It is nice the way you have spoken, and you asked me for a very rare boon to have a son exactly like me. You being priests and sages who are true Brahmanas, who are people who speak the truth, I cannot make your word false, and yet there is no one like me." Here Krishna, the Supreme Being, says that there is nobody who is equal to me. So they say, we want a son exactly like you. And so here the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, says, there is no one, I alone am my compeer, that is, there is no one like me. And therefore, in order to not falsify your words, he gives the greatest benediction that I shall descend through Nabhi and his wife as a part manifestation. So this is the greatest benediction they get by offering the right prayer and by asking for a son like him. Here Bhagavan says that there being nobody else like me, only I can appear in order to make your word true, and you being great sages and brahmanas, your words cannot be falsified, and since you have uttered this boon, I have to honor it, and therefore I shall come as a part manifestation through Nabhi and his wife. So, thus addressing the gathering and making both the king and the queen, Nabhi and Meru Devi, very happy, the Lord disappeared from there. And then, eventually, after some time, the Lord descended in a divine form in the womb of Meru Devi as the son of Nabhi, and thereby he came to oblige that great king. And this is the form of what is called as Rshabha. This is a great form, a divine form of the Supreme Lord, Rshabha Avatar. And so this Rshabha Avatar, he descends as the son of Nabhi, and he comes in order to teach the world by his personal example how to maintain sacred vows, how to live the life of an ascetic. He first becomes the king, of course, but later he lives the life of an ascetic, one who doesn't wear any clothes, who takes the space as his dress, like Digambar as it's called, and he sets the example for how to live the life of a completely renounced sage, an ascetic life in total celibacy and completely with complete detachment as the perfect sage. So this is Rshabha Avatar, and this avatar is known to have been the source of what is present day known as the Jain religion. So the Jains, the Jain monks live like this, and they derive this from the Rshabha Avatar. And Rshabha, who is a part manifestation of Bhagavan, appeared to set the example of how to live as a completely renounced monk, as a Digambar, and live the life of a total ascetic. So, this is the glorious descent of Rshabha. Now, in the next episode, we will see some of the teachings of Rshabha and how he lived his life. But for now, we have seen the beautiful appearance of the Supreme Lord first in the sacrifice of Nabhi, and through the prayers of Nabhi's priests blessing him, the Supreme Being appears as a avatar, which is the glorious Rshabha Avatar. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.